Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our breakout session, Generations to Strength, how Massachusetts manufacturing are solving the multi-generational puzzle. My name is Matt Barron. I'm the Associate Director for Workforce Development at Mass MEP, and it's a pleasure to be with you here today. First, I want to thank our breakout session sponsors, Candy, Donovan and McGee LLC, and Bank of America. Thank you for choosing to spend part of your conference experience with us. The fact that you are here speaking here speaks to the importance of this topic. Across manufacturing, we are seeing more generations working together than any other time in history. I believe there's 4 generations right now in the workforce. While that can sometimes create challenges, it also creates an incredible opportunity to strengthen our organizations through collaboration, knowledge sharing, innovation, and mutual learning. This is a conversation that matters. Manufacturers across Massachusetts are navigating workforce transitions, capturing institutional knowledge, developing future leaders, and finding ways to create environments where employees of all generations can succeed together. The organizations that can bridge these generations effectively will be the ones positioned for long-term success. Today is designed to be highly interactive. We encourage you to participate, share your experiences, ask questions, they want lots of questions, and learn from people around you. There is tremendous expertise in this room, and some of the most valuable insights will come from peer-to-peer conversations and shared experiences. We are also fortunate to have an outstanding panel joining us today. Deanna Zarella, Senior Vice President of Human Resources at AIS, who brings more than 25 years of HR leadership experience spanning talent development, employee engagement, leadership development, and organizational transformation. Bethany Pollack, Vice President at Draper Knitting, whose experience in operations, product development, and workforce leadership provides a unique perspective on managing and developing talent across generations. Laura Hosler, Continuous Improvement Manager at Bacon Joy Foods, who directly works with teams on the shop floor to drive operational excellence, process improvement, and employee engagement. We are grateful for the willingness to share their experiences, challenges, and successes with us today, and for Deanna, there was a trip to Hawaii. I don't know where it came from, but there's a trip to Hawaii somehow, but that may still be on. And leading our discussion today is someone who has dedicated his career to workforce development in manufacturing education. It is my pleasure to introduce Mike Nager, Solutions Center Director at Festo Didactic and award-winning author. Mike has spent more than 30 years helping manufacturers develop talent and has designed over 325 learning factories across the United States. He's a recognized thought leader on advanced manufacturing, workforce development, and the future of learning. Mike understands firsthand that building strong organizations require connecting people, knowledge, and technology across generations. Please join me in welcoming Mike Nager as we begin this important conversation about turning generations into one of our greatest operational strengths. Mike, the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you, Matt. So before we get started into all of the generation stuff, I've got one question to ask you. Who's here heard of the skills gap? Who here is experiencing in their professional life and in their work life a skills gap problem? Who would like someone just to take care of that problem? Make it go away. Yeah. All right. Well, you're welcome. Because that's what I do every day. So I've worked for 30 years for manufacturers of industrial controls. For the last 10, I've dedicated working with colleges, universities, high schools, research and development centers, in developing the hands-on skills that are needed for manufacturing and some of the related disciplines. So 325 learning factories are across the country right now, and these are hopefully preparing that pipeline to come into your organizations in the very, very near future. So you did mention I have written a couple of books written for kids, parents, counselors, to introduce them to manufacturing. They're available on Amazon. If you want me to send you an ebook, just give me your business card and just put book on it, and I'll just send it to you tomorrow. And you can use that to encourage students to at least think about a career in manufacturing. Because it used to be that people would say, oh, the reputation of manufacturing is dangerous and dirty and dull. But the reality is, for a lot of young people and their parents, it's even worse than that. They don't even think of manufacturing at all. There is no perception of manufacturing. And that's what we're going to have to try to alleviate. So in this area, we've done a very nice project at the Massachusetts Maritime Academy. So those students there are learning the skills that you probably need in your organization. Programmable logic controllers, sensors, hydraulics, pneumatics, some HVAC, things of that nature. And then also at Northeastern University in their industrial engineering lab, we've got robots, conveyors, machine tools, mobile robots, everything for the students to be able to come into your organizations and maybe help you very quickly deploy those technologies. The cobots, the collaborative robots, super hot right now. Does everyone know how to deploy them? Not really, but these students do, so you can do that. Once a year, we hold a emerging technology summit in this lab. If you're interested in participating in that, give me your business card, just write down summit, and we'll make sure that we invite you over to it. We bring in different experts and different hot technologies to talk about what's going on. Okay, so let's see. But here, we're talking about what happens after students graduate from schools that have some of my equipment and curriculum perhaps, and move into your companies. Typically going to be younger people, 20, 21, 22, 23 years old. Their last experience has been in school around people of a similar age, and now they're going to come into your organization that looks very much different than what they had just experienced. They're going to see 3 other generations of folks in there. So, how many boomers do we have in the room? Okay, all right. How about Gen X? Oh, wow, okay. Millennial? Okay. Gen Z? Okay, welcome. So, that's how it's defined. Baby boomers. I always kind of hate these slides a little bit because I think it's a little bit stereotypical, because I know people in every generation that have different abilities and different thoughts and how they behave. But in general, you know, one of the things with the baby boomer generation is the worldview, and it's here, right here, the worldview. Achievement comes after you pay your dues, right? So you're going to go into an organization, you're expected to be patient, and if you're loyal and you stay with that organization throughout your time, you expect to be rewarded. And you don't expect people to jump in front of you, right? So that's a pretty common theme. That's something we're going to explore a little bit, you know, down the line, because things are changing, folks. You know, there's different expectations with the different aged people. So Gen X, that was our biggest hand raising in the room here. So, you know, what is the motivation there? All right, so our generation, I just squeaked in, right? I was right on the edge of baby boomer and Gen X. But definitely we saw what our parents and our grandparents did. We thought they worked too hard and they weren't being respected enough and didn't do it. So we were looking for work-life balance and trying to get a little bit more balance in our personal and work life. All right. And then the millennials, you know, this is a world where people, and my kids fall into this. You know, they've never known a world before 9/11. You know, they never went to an airport and just parked 2 feet away from the entrance. And if you were late, you didn't go through security, they're just going to get on the plane, right? They've never known that world. And they were also looking for different things, mostly seeking challenge and growth. It wasn't a job just to make money. It was a job to be a little more fulfilling in the overall life. This was kind of the hallmarks of the millennial generation. And by the way, if you have any comments or you want to interject something, feel free to. We have a small enough group here. It can be very interactive. All right. Why not? Why not? Okay, so now we got Gen Z here, the first real digital generation. And I've talked to a few folks, and this can drive older folks crazy, the amount of digital use that the kids are using today. So, up here, social media, they just grew up with it. They never knew anything different. Our one Gen Z person in the room, this is her whole life, right? She never dialed on the telephone or anything of that.
The rotary phones?
I know.
A rotary
I
phone,
remember
right?
rotary phones.
Yes.
I saw that YouTube video once, and I don't know if it was a gag or not, but they put a phone on the table and they asked
Oh, the dad was gonna pay him
Yeah.
money if you could dial a
to
number.
dial it, and they were like pressing it. And I was like, is that real? I'm not sure. So yeah, that's what we have. This is what we have in the workforce. And as we said, it can be a source of friction, or it can be a source of great opportunity to bring what every generation brings together. So if we look at the Massachusetts workforce in particular, what you'll notice here is Massachusetts as a state is skewing older than the United States in general. So that's typically not a good thing to have. And then up here, this is just not age related. Okay, 16 to 19, you're pretty much in school, but look, 20 to 24, huge drop off in people employed in this sector. And I'd like to tell you it's going to get better. I'd love to tell you not to worry about it, but the demographics are really scary. All right, so scary. But I took a look, and did you know that in the last 10 years, in the state of Massachusetts, 14 colleges and universities closed their doors or merged? All right, 14. All right, there's 5 other states that have about 14 that closed as well, and all the rest, down the line. We have a demographic curve here that is going to be very hard to fight against. And that's an industry. Manufacturing is not competing for talent. That's other manufacturers. It's competing for talent. That's every other industry and employer in the area. Yes, ma'am.
So in terms of the workforce distribution, this doesn't take into account those that are currently full-time students, or it does take that into account? So we're not seeing a lull that will graduate and suddenly enter the workforce?
Yeah, well, you can surmise like this group will very quickly come into the workforce, right?
Yeah.
But this gap here should be the most troubling to consider. All right, so we have a demographic cliff, and the 4-year universities, the schools that are closing are experiencing it first. All right, there's not enough students in seats to keep them active. And there was another wave of this even before this happened with the for-profit schools. So you might remember in around year 2000, all the for-profit schools popped up, and they experienced a very similar change very, very quickly. So this isn't going to get better. The industry has to do better in attracting talent into it, or they're going to be at St. Joe's or to Buc-ee's or to Aldi and have their careers there. Costco's a great place to work.
How much you
Right?
Yeah, they do. I would make a lot more.
Now, coupled with that, what happens when you have a workforce that has a lot of super experienced people working for years and decades in it? Well, when you have a loss through a death or through a retirement or through someone that's just had enough and went to another company, that can cost you up to $200,000 by the time you add in finding a replacement, a lost productivity. You know, it can be 4 times whatever the person's annual salary was, 3 times whatever their salary was, something of that nature. It's definitely affecting the bottom line of every manufacturer. So what we want to do in the rest of this session is start talking about, well, how can we flip, you know, the conflicts to the strengths? How can we use the 30-year veteran that knows just by the sound that a machine is running properly or not running properly? It's hard to teach that in a couple of weeks, you know, to someone new. But also, how can we bring someone that's younger, more familiar with other technologies that says, well, I don't have to listen to it. I can go onto an online forum, type it in, and someone's going to tell me the answer in 10 minutes, right? That's also an advantage. Who cares as long as you get the right answer in 10 minutes, where it actually comes from, right? And we had the great AI speech today, and maybe it's going to be an AI agent that you interface with in the future. So to get everyone working together, we have to recognize, well, where are the different points of friction that can happen within the organization? And there's 5 main areas: communication, learning styles, the use of technology, just the cultural norms. What do you expect out of your job and what you expect out of life? And a biggie, what's your advancement expectation? Okay. So if we look at the first one, communication, it's a little bit strange to think, but just the choice of communication can be an area where there's friction and where there's loss of communication, because we have so many different ways now to do it. Sometimes I'll get something, someone will send me a message, and I gotta think, where did that message come in from? Was it a text message? Was it a Facebook Messenger message? Was it, right? I can't go back and find it. And what you'll find is, you know, there might be, is anyone in this room using Slack in their organization? No? Okay. That's kind of the new and up-and-coming communication, you know, method with all the software companies. I would not be surprised if it eventually got into more stuff. But, you know, if you have all the young people on Slack and none of the older people on it, that is an area for communication problems. Yes?
I have a question about that. We had a young guy that came in, tried to get us on Slack, and put it out. We didn't use it very long. He changed jobs, so we kind of disappeared from our. Well, what advantage would that give you over email or texting?
It's more collaborative with more people. So, you know, the emails and texts tend to be one-to-one.
You can email to 10 people.
Yeah.
That email is.
Yeah. I don't use Slack myself either.
Is it like Teams? Is it like
Yeah,
Teams?
it
It's
is.
kind of like Teams, yeah.
Yes,
So
very
Teams,
much.
you can collaborate within your plans and channels and stuff. It's a more intuitive tool than AI driven.
You can also meet together on Slack channels and things like that, so. I think at the end of the day, it just becomes down to preference, right? If the person prefers Slack, and the other half of people don't, then
Yeah.
you gotta work.
I actually have a problem because I was working for a non-profit, and the non-profits, they don't have Outlook, they have Google. So we were using Slack as a method of communication.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
Sounds
so you
very
can
much
answer.
like Teams. It sounds very much like Teams.
Mhm.
We use Teams at my facility.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of corporate
Or
places
my
love it.
Teams.
Yeah.
Only because it doesn't work very well with our video setup. That's the only reason we don't like Teams.
Okay. So one thing an organization can do is you can set, you know, expectations. When do you use each communication channel, so it's not up for debate and everyone can say, oh, if it's an emergency, let's not do a text, let's do a phone call, right? And I had some younger colleagues, they were very averse to picking up the phone and talking to folks, and I was like, look, in a tense situation, there's nothing you can text and nothing that you can email that's going to make it better. You know, people are looking at this dry communication through a lens of aggravation and angriness, and every word that you do is going to be misinterpreted from what you would intend. You got to pick up the phone and call them. and it was like pulling teeth.
Yeah, we did, we no longer have phones, but we use Teams as our calling, which, for whatever reason, they adapted better to that. They were used to Teams, so now they use Teams to make phone calls. What a concept. It's
With
not a
video
phone.
on or off?
Video on or off, they have their choice. But again, if you're calling another colleague, if they're using Teams, and outside calls all come through Teams now. So it was a changeover, and it seems to be working.
You know, and to their defense, you know, a phone call is very disruptive for the person on the receiving end, right? I decided to call you, I don't know what you're doing. You're doing something important, not doing something, right? You're busy. So I think, you know, people that didn't grow up with the phone were like, well, it's pretty presumptuous for me to call somebody and interrupt. But on Teams, you get the little green lights, red lights, and yellow lights, right? So you can be like, oh, it's green.
You've
I can
changed
go.
all our internal communications for the management team into Teams. So that because we've got so much traffic, you know, with customers and vendors on the email side, you know, customer service and purchasing, we focus on those responses, and then anything critical for the business, we just keep it all in Teams to streamline that communication flow.
Yeah, that's a great tip. Great tip. Anyone else? I see a hand over there.
We also use our HRIS system to do a lot of communication, depending upon which one you use. Like we use Paylocity for payroll and HRIS. You can create groups inside of their community, and if there is an urgent situation or manufacturing and we lose power, not every employee has the email, and so the easiest way to do it is just to put blanket communications out, so that way they know when they can come back, if we're gonna be closed due to weather, things like that. So there are alternatives.
We do that. We have Paycom, same thing. Internal communications is to one-stop shop for everybody, because most of our manufacturing employees do not have AIS emails, so that's the best way. And they communicate to us as well through Paycom, so it's been a win-win as far as that goes.
Okay. Learning preferences. So every organization needs a learning plan in place. With this AI, it's changing, what do they say, every 7 months? There's something completely new. It's doubled its capability in every 7 months. So, you know, if you don't have a learning plan in place, you got to get one quick. But also, you got to be cognizant that the younger people coming up might have learned in a flipped classroom, where a lot of the theory was done offline, and you would come into a school or to an educational thing and actually do the hands-on portion or the project itself. And you have to look for vendors and things that can provide you digital content and also physical content. And it has to be, you know, a great mix. Advancement expectations. You know, we talked about the baby boomers and the Gen X doing the dues and paying the price and being loyal. That's really changed quite a bit over the last 20 years or so. So younger folks are expecting to grow. They're looking for things that they can put on their resume that they didn't have 6 months ago. And they're also looking to advance more quickly and rapidly than maybe the older generations, you know, expected. So you got to keep that in mind, especially if you get people that are very high performing folks. If you want them for the long term, you really got to think about how can we move them through, you know, not in 2 years or 3 years or 4 years times, but start thinking about 5 months, 6 months, you know, 8 months, a year, you know, something that shows forward movement.
I do want to say something on that too. What I have noticed with that is, depending upon when the advancement happens, there are also, let's say, baby boomers that feel resentment because their advancement is that much faster. It's like, you know, you're overlooking me and you're, you know, promoting this individual. And so it's like you have to really, you know, balance that nicely and make sure that you are communicating the reasons behind that. But it is, you find that if you're not doing that, then you are losing what you're trying to build to fill those positions as, you know, those gaps happen, but it can cause a lot of resentment within your workforce if you're doing it. So, again, they waited so long. Hey, it took me 10 years to be a director. This person walked in, you know, 1 year and now they're a director. It's like, okay, you know, you can't keep saying, well, things are different. Times have changed. So just making sure that the messaging that you are, you know, sending out to your employees, that it's honest, it's, you know, again, and the why behind what you're doing it.
Now, in terms of, we're talking about advancement expectations, is the intent that advancement always means that it's a new title, a new responsibility level or whatnot? Or is there the possibility of being able to change what that traditional just ladder that goes straight up to instead is more of a pyramid type thing with more lateral areas of growth that aren't necessarily linked to a new role position or a significant, obviously we all want more money, but there's not always money in the pot, but the ability to have control over learning different things around a business without having to walk out the door.
Yeah, I would say yes. Don't underestimate the importance of titles, right? So, you know, in our own organization, we've had a couple, you know, really great young folks that started off as technicians, got a bachelor degree and you know, instantly wanted to be the automation engineer, not the automation technician. With all these new technologies coming out, you can be creative in creating new titles for employees, you know, chief AI implementer or something, right? You can be creative in it. You know, you're running your own organization. There's no law that says, you know, these are the only professions and titles, and you can create something that's pretty exciting, I think, you know, from that. It doesn't just have to be money. You know?
Yeah, we've done it without, well, we're not big on titles either, I will admit that, right? They're, in our organization, more for people to understand somewhat of the structure, but also just because you gotta put something on a business card.
Who uses business cards?
Well, we still do.
We still do.
Look,
We still do.
we're 170 years old. It's gonna take us a little while to get into the next century. But there are a lot of lateral opportunities because we're a textile mill and there's a lot of different departments. And the more different departments you know how to run, the more valuable you are. So while it doesn't necessarily automatically mean an increase in pay, it does make you more valuable overall. It leads to an increase in pay once you've understood that. And it also leads to some security, right? If we're gonna have to, God forbid, go through layoffs, the people that know more departments are gonna be the ones that get to stay first above the ones that know one operation. So the willingness to make that lateral move and learn different departments. And then it's also a stepping stone to, should you want to become a supervisor or a lead, that is extremely helpful if that's the next step they want to take. We have a mix of people who, some of them are very content where they are, and others really want the opportunity to eventually become a supervisor or move into the office or the development side of the house. But lateral has worked quite well for us when a upward move isn't necessarily a possibility at that point in time.
Similar on that, it's lateral, but it also gives you those opportunities when something opens up. So we started what we call AIS University. So we offer in-house training for certain skills, and as that training is done, there are some of that training do have financial rewards associated with it, but not all of them. But it's certifications within our operations team, so that we know we can track, and there's, you know, as opportunities come, we can go in and say, okay, well, so-and-so has been trained on X, Y, and Z. This would be somebody who we would want to be working with to get them ready for that next role, whatever that may be. So it's kind of a combination of both. And if they're not ready, then we know, okay, we need to then offer to this person because we've seen something in that individual, or those individuals said, hey, we really think you would be good for this training. So we'll offer that to them as well too. So it's a whole year-long thing that we do, and it's ongoing all the time. So we typically do certifications between 30 to 100 within a month. So we have an awful lot of certifications that go on, and it's not just specifically to machines. We also do, you know, standing up and doing presentation skills. So things that as you're a leader, you need to know how to do that. You know, sometimes it's very, unfortunate because they don't understand that and they don't know how to do it. But the other challenge that we have multi-cultures within AIS. So we have approximately 38 countries that are represented at AIS that work in our facility. So again, that in combination with this can also be challenging. So you have to try and find something that's going to be universal for our entire workforce. And it has been very, very positive.
We've used outside management training as a way to kind of filter through who we have identified as somebody who might make a good candidate for that, and the company pays for them to go to this management training, so it's a benefit to them whether they stay or go, and helps us kind of identify are we on the right track with where this person could potentially go.
And that's one of the things Mass MVP can offer you too, as a company, looking for putting together some of the training programs with frontline supervisor or anything, just reach out to us.
My company actually utilizes that right now.
Yeah,
We use the workforce grants as
grants.
ways to
We did
help
too.
pay for some of that as well.
We actually have supervisor training going on today at our facility for Mass MVP.
Yeah, it's great. It's very effective. And we're using the leadership development, so it's a year-long it's 2 years, 2-year process that we're doing. So we have between 60 to 70 core people who we've identified that, we know that they're going to be promotable, maybe not now, but we want to kind of give them the skills now. So it's a 2-year process that they've committed to for this leadership development, and it's a great program. I mean, highly recommended. We did it through the state, got the grant, and then I outsourced it through another company to come in and do the training, because it's not something that we're equipped to do in-house to do that. So it's been very, very effective. Highly recommended. Tap into those grants. It's there.
I have a question for the panel. Urban, but I'm gonna ask it.
That's okay.
So again, we're talking about the multi-generations, right? And the older generation came to work, worked hard, and that's what they wanted to do. They slowly moved up for some just stayed doing the same thing. Now the younger generations want to start and get here right away, right? How do you mitigate those conversations, even on the shop floor? Maybe Mallory, since you're on the floor, right? Do you see these conversations happening within your staff, and anger or resentment being built up because some of the younger?
Excuse me.
I don't see the anger aspect of it, more the curiosity of it.
Yep.
I think our company's 85 years this year, so we have associates that have been with us. They're 170, yeah, half your age. We have a number of associates that are at 20 years, 25, 30, 35 years, and they are starting to lean towards the retirement stage. I'm Gen X, so I am comfortable where I'm at, but I also have aspirations to be a little bit more. So I went to school, got my master's degree, but we have people that work on the line, and it's a thankless, redundant job for many of these positions on the manufacturing lines. And during COVID, I actually worked one of the production lines for 6 months because my job was irrelevant during COVID. But it gave me a huge perspective from that, and I think it's important. And I think it's important for leaders, senior leaders, and everybody to really understand what your associates are going through. Probably 90% of our staff work on the production floor. So we run 3 shifts, we have a sanitation crew, we're essentially running 24 hours a day for the most part. And we have people who are completely fine coming in every day, doing their job, punching out and going home at the end of the day. They don't have to think about it, they don't have to answer emails, they don't even have a company email, as you were stating with the communication issues that we sometimes have. I don't see the resentment of it, but the people coming in that want that upward mobility, most of them are not coming on to the manufacturing floor. They're coming in at a little bit of a higher role with the potential to increase their title or whatever it might be. And we have my children are Gen Z, so I'm experiencing this firsthand also with them, but they, the millennials and the Gen Z that are coming in now, they have a lot of more jobs on their resume. They don't have the longevity at each of the jobs. Like I'm working with a woman now and she's fantastic, but she's having a lot of frustrations that she's not getting resolutions for, so she's looking for something else and she's only been with us a little over a year. And I will be tremendously sad if she ends up leaving, but I also understand what she's going through and her frustrations and stuff that she's experiencing. So I'm 12 years with my company, so I mean, my intention when I started here was to retire with them. So I still have about 15 years, but then you experience all these things. We have a lot of people coming in that are coming in above me and stuff. And I don't have a problem with them coming in above me, but I do have a problem with you coming in and not asking any questions to understand things before you just jump in and want to change everything. That's where I have some of the issues. And that's what I think our long-term employees on the floor do experience also, because they have people coming in and being like, well, you could do it faster, you can do it this way, we should be doing this, we should be doing that. We're also automating a lot of our production things now and this has been within the last probably 3 to 4 years. We're gonna be building a brand new facility in Salem, New Hampshire, and that's gonna be fully automated. So we won't need as many people, but people are concerned about their job. Are they losing their jobs because we're automating processes on the line and stuff? But I mean, anytime you involve people, the potential for errors, mistakes goes up. You know, as you start to automate things, I mean, you set the computer to what you want it to do. So it either does it or it doesn't. You know, there's not really any in between. So I think it's some frustration, I think, from some of our longer term associates, but I don't see the turnover that I see with our Gen Z and millennials that I do see with our boomers and Gen Xers even. If we have an employee that was with us for almost 40 years. He wanted to retire and we had to keep him on part-time because we never gained all of his knowledge. We didn't train the right people in the right amount of time, so he's now working part-time until we can, you know, absorb all of the information that he has working this line with very antiquated equipment. So some of the equipment as it's being evolved, but we still have equipment that's very old. So, and he knows the nuances of, you know, certain pieces of it and stuff. So I think that's important also to make sure that you're gathering that knowledge prior to the departure in a timely manner. Like you say, you can't transfer all your knowledge in 2 weeks. You know, like you can't just stick somebody with them and be like, tell them everything you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a big thing for us is our staff that's been there a long time, and we're, you know, there's 8 people in the office and then everybody else that works for the company is out on the mill floor. And we have 28 people total, give or take. We have people that have been there over 40 years and others that are very close to that. There's very few younger individuals. Most of them don't stay. But the key thing for our older staff is for them to understand we're not bringing in your replacement. You are welcome to stay as long as you want, but we need them to start before you go, because I can't teach them what that person who's worked on the mill floor for 42 years knows. This is not our way of trying to push you out the door and push you towards retirement. It is very much that we need you to train the next generation, because there's knowledge, there's tribal knowledge they've built up over the years that we can never put in a process or procedure manual or have the team in the office try and teach them. And then there's, you know, the biggest thing I think that we see strife over is work ethic and the desire to keep your phone on the factory floor next to you at all times. You know, taking extra long walks around the mill when you're going to do another task, that kind of thing. Is there, you know, the difference in that approach to things is frustrating to both sides.
Same thing, so pretty much our C-suite executive level, they are all going to be transitioning into retirement over the next 2 years, which is going to be a huge void. They've been with the company, they grew up with the company, so the average tenure is 28 to 30 years. So we have that tremendous amount of tribal knowledge, but it also has posed something with individuals trying to bring in their replacements. It's that fear. You know, again, if I do that, then where am I going to go? To your point, you have a home here. It's like, we can't just do this in a year. It is going to take a long time to bring in your replacement. So how do we do that transition while making those employees also feel that they're still engaged and we need them for obvious reasons? And it has become, you know, an issue for us. One of the things I always like to say to my managers, you know, when you're hiring, look at, and I know it might be a silly thing to say, but I say, you're looking for your replacement. You know, the hiring before, you used to try and bring somebody in and you would train them and do that. Time is so critical now. We don't have the time to do all of that training. So when you're looking for somebody, think about that person, you know, is this gonna be your replacement? So look at that, and I always go, well, where am I gonna go if I hire my replacement? It's like, well, you're still gonna be here. This doesn't happen overnight. It's like, but you should want something else within the organization as well too. So bring in that person now where you see that person's going to be a replacement either for you or maybe somebody else within the organization. And don't be afraid, you know, before that was that thing, they held on to that, that was their job security. It's like, job security is there just by the nature of what you do and how you do it. Now we're needing you to do that, to secure somebody else to come in so you can do other things within the organization. And it's a struggle, it's real, but again, you know, it's like, we're gonna see this over the next 2 to 3 years where, you know, anybody that's there today, they're not gonna be there, you know, again, and they want to retire. It's not like they wanna work part-time. So it's like, how quickly are we gonna be able to bring in that knowledge and then transfer it so that these people are then able to then assume the responsibilities? And to your point, work ethic is very different. I always say it, I am amazed, you know, the lack of common sense that sometimes exists out there. And you know, if they can't look it up, they have a difficult time finding it. So it's like, just understanding how you find things, that also is a challenge. So how do you bridge that gap as well? So, yes.
I wanna make a comment, like in whatever you said. So, I'm an HR and I'm on the board for Women in Engineering. And I did 4 career days this spring with different schools like on the North Shore. What actually was mind-boggling to me, I went to Triton Academy, which is Triton High School, which is in Newburyport. And they were more than 100, I can't give you the exact count of the students, but it was definitely more than 100. They were only 5, they were divided by interests, round tables. So I was at the round table for trades and manufacturing. Only 5 seniors, young women were at my table. 5. This speaks volumes. Guess where we need to be as manufacturers? We should be out there, we should be talking to them,
Correct.
we should be explaining to them that there is nothing to fear.
Right. Manufacturing's
We can
changed.
train them, but to me, this was like the biggest eye opener. How from like 100+ students, only 5 students
Yeah.
wanted to be in trades?
Yeah, I think there's that stigma associated with manufacturing in general, and it's not manufacturing as it was in our parents' day. It's obviously changed, yeah. It's correct.
They've been pushing it for
Yeah.
decades.
Yeah, there, I mean, I do know, I was talking about this earlier, so at AIS, we did recognize that, and so what we have done is we've partnered even starting with the trade schools. So we do manufacturing day, and we bring in not only students, we bring parents in, crucial. Parents need to see that it's not this dingy, dark, you know, OSHA is gonna come in and close the doors because there's all these safety violations. So we bring them in, they get to experience a day at AIS, you know. It's amazing what pizza can do for students as well too. However, again, and that has been very, very successful. And depending upon the size of the schools, we will typically do, you know, 1 school at a time, and we will have probably about 150 students that come in. We bus them in and they spend the day and they meet with all of the individuals who are in charge of different aspects within our manufacturing facility. So someone may be more interested in the robotics piece, it depends. Okay, so we do all of that and they're able to have these little breakout sessions, but just giving them some exposure. We also have partnered with colleges and universities as well too, particularly engineering. And I will say WPI has been fantastic in partnering with AIS. We are fortunate our COO happens to be a WPI grad, so we do get the benefit of having that. And we've recruited 3 women engineers who have come in and are now working at AIS. But their first impression, oh, I'm gonna go work in manufacturing, I'm not going to college to do that. But once they got in and they saw what the opportunities are there, it was like, oh, this is a home run. I mean, this is a really great thing. So it's like, we work with that. And it is a lot of work on our staff, Cause we, we don't have certain departments that just do that, but we work collectively, and we're really trying to figure out what's the best way of getting that information out to that next generation coming into the workforce so they can see what those opportunities are. Anyone can find a job. We want to tell them, we're gonna offer you a career, and that's the difference, and that's how we've shifted in our recruiting efforts too. So we're not hiring for a job, we're hiring you to give you a career at AAS, and here's what it's going to look like. And they get to talk to individuals who have experienced that firsthand at AIS.
So one of the things that I'm hearing is that, and I know from my own facility, is retention of the older generations, real easy. They're in the door, they're staying till they retire, and they're already just counting down to retirement days, which is awesome, great, everyone's happy. However, the youngins that are coming in the door aren't looking to stay for 40 years. They are looking to, I need a job to be able to afford my next step in life, whatever that may be. And do you guys have any suggestions on how to either identify the people that want to grow long-term with a company, or incentives to help people stay for like a 5-year period rather than a 6-month period?
Can I say something to that? I think one of the things, as we've hired a lot of new people, we've actually created a lot of new roles with the company, is to really have a comprehensive understanding about what that role is going to entail before you hire the person. Because that's also happened, that people come in with expectations of one thing, but then somebody has a different idea and they want them to do this, and it's completely different from what they were originally hired for. That can create some frustration. So I think being very upfront about what your expectations are with each of the people that you're bringing in, especially if you're bringing them in at a supervisor or manager level, which seems to be what most of our roles have been with is management levels and stuff. So we do promote from within, but as long as we have qualified people to fill those roles too. So I think that's one of the key things for me, is that just making sure that you're very open and honest about what your expectations are. When you're setting goals, set them together, make them achievable. And they talk about the SMART goals and stuff, so just make sure that they feel like they're doing a good job, I think. 'Cause right now, the one woman that I was speaking about, she feels like she's not doing a great job because there's been a lot of issues, but she's not being set up for success. She's also being set up to fail. So it's not really her fault, but she's feeling the responsibility of it, and it's lending to her frustration and her aggravation and stuff, which is kind of prompting her to start looking elsewhere for a role. So I think those are just some of the things to take into consideration.
We've done more trials, hiring people on a temporary basis in some cases. Like, let's start with 3 months. You get to figure out if you like the role. We get to figure out if you're correct for the role. And if it works for both of us, great, here's where we see this going. That's harder to do with some of the folks that work on the floor, because you don't really want them to leave after 3 months, so you've just invested so much in training them. But it's also better for us to find out in 3 months than it is 8 months to a year and you're stuck. So, and we've used temp agencies a little bit more as well to try and bring people in, see how they fit, see if they like the position before moving on. And then we've also hired people straight off the floor. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. I wish I could say, here's how, if I knew the answer to your question,
There's a magic
I
equation.
wouldn't be sitting here.
I'll add to that too. I think one of the things too is onboarding. Everyone thinks that onboarding is just, 1 day, 1 week. Onboarding shouldn't just be like that first week. Onboarding is really part of how we are able to keep those employees engaged. And it can't just be from an HR's perspective. So we make sure that all of the managers and those touch points are there so that they are having those conversations on an ongoing basis, making sure they know what their job is going to be, what's expected of them, but keeping that communication open. Very different. A baby boomer doesn't want, you go through your onboarding, you're done, that's it. They want to go do their thing. generations want some things differently, so that style of communication has to be adaptable to the individuals that you're hiring. We do make sure that we, and whether this works or not, but it has worked for AIS, we disc all of our employees, so we know where they stand. So the leaders who are getting new employees understand, oh, hi, I know how I have to interact with them, and they've all been trained on that as well. So they have a full understanding. It's not foolproof, but it helps us in staying in touch with the different generations within the workforce.
I'll say one more thing, sorry. The other thing is that if anybody is hired for the office, depending on, like, we're not gonna make our new controller go out and work on the factory floor, but anybody else that's going into a sales, a marketing, a product development position, I had 20 plus years in the textile industry when I started at Draper. I spent my first 2 weeks on the floor working in each different department, and they all saw me on the floor working in each different department. And if a department is short a person, I now know how to run a dye house. I can dye fabric. I did not have that skill before I went to Draper. So I think that helps build the, oh, they're not asking me to do something they wouldn't do. And it also helps in the communication between myself and them, because now I have a greater understanding of what it is they're doing and what some of the challenges are they're facing when I go out and say, well, can you do this? Well, that's impossible, but, and sometimes it really is impossible. Don't try and knit jute, doesn't go well. But I think that helps that communication between the two too, is if they see even office staff on the floor.
Create pathways. We talk about people coming into manufacturing. It's dark, it's dull, it's dangerous. The dull is a good one for me. It's usually dark, dirty, and dangerous. Dull. We do a lot of work with many people in this room around different populations, veterans, behind the wall. Doesn't matter what age. People want to know where they can go. Why are people leaving your organization? I'm not saying yours or yours or yours. Why are they leaving? They don't know what's available to them. They're leaving for better opportunities. They're leaving for more money. If we create pathways that individuals know where they can go within your organization, then they'll stay.
We started 3 years ago what we call our Radiance program, and it's really neurodiverse adults who really didn't have an opportunity to transition into the workforce. As of today, I have 250 neurodiverse adults that come in on a weekly basis to do jobs that our HR team used to recruit for. So again, there's 18 agencies that we work with. And again, fully vetted before they come in, and we want to make sure you have to understand what these jobs are. So they come into the plant, they tour. Some have coaches that come with them who, to your point, do the jobs. They're here doing the same jobs that their individuals that they're coaching are doing. So that has been a huge home run and has really opened up a lot of the eyes, and has absolutely helped us with our leaders being able to train individuals who may look, walk, speak differently, but they're doing a job that we all want to do, and they just want to be part of an organization. So they've been very, very positive at AIS.
So Sarah, I asked the question.
Great question. Our time's up.
Time to go.
Time to go.
I have a few slides to encourage conversation. So we got technology. Sometimes there's resistance to using new things with this AI. We're going to experience it all over again.
Technology. Yeah, I just wanted to prove a point.
It's not always cracked up to
Yes. Son of a gun.
And then we just touched on this, cultural norms. Manufacturers are famous for saying there's a skills gap, you can't find qualified employees, there's no one out there. But then you look at the ratio of women in that facility, and it's skewed tremendously. You look at some other underrepresented populations, it's skewed negatively. You have to open your eyes, and you also have to make sure that your cultural norms inside the company are rock solid. And it's not the old boys network, it's not the old white man facility or industry anymore. And if that's still lingering in your own company, you're just on borrowed time for something really bad happens. I've seen it a couple times in my own career. Just finishing up here, before we get into the exercise, mentorship is a great idea of being able to make those new people, that onboarding process, more formalized over a longer stretch, and pairing up, the more seasoned workers with the newer workers, so that that knowledge transfer happens faster, quicker, and in a more predictable manner. So that's pretty well known. What's less well known is, because of all the new technology changes, because younger generations and younger people have skill sets maybe other folks don't, you can do a reverse mentoring exercise, right? So if you have someone that just came out of a trade school, worked with a collaborative robot, worked with the robot safety scanners, and knows how to do a risk analysis, and when the CEO brings in one of these robots, you can think, hey, hold on, we can't just hook that up to the machine, it's more complicated than that. We can have the 23-year-old actually do a workshop and bring the other people up to speed. And what does that do? It gets them visibility within the company, it gets them respect that's earned, that's just not given, but they're bringing something valuable to the table, and they'll be very happy about that. And then, publicize it. So we say, it has to be safe. You have to make sure everyone feels safe, that they're not training a replacement, or giving favoritism. It's got to be bi-directional. So you got to enforce that in your company culture. And then you have to do these 5 things. And the biggest thing is celebrate. So when you have a success with people of different generations or different groups, make it public. Make a pizza party and celebrate, we got the robot up and running in a week and everyone's trained up now, right? It's easy, it's cheap, and it pays real dividends with everyone feeling respected at work. That still goes a long way. Okay, so that's all I've got for that. Anything for our panel? You've been waiting up there patiently to talk.
I just wanted to talk about the celebrates, as you were saying. We just started something this year. Associates are allowed to nominate other associates. So people that have helped them do something, or they've gone above and beyond, or done something out of the norm, or out of their job duties, responsibilities and stuff. So managers can also do that, but we recognize them at our weekly huddle meetings with all their peers present. They get to choose a gift card. They also get a prize. We bought a bunch of stuff. It's kind of driven. We have a safety program also. So we used to give out quarterly bonuses for the safety program, but you receive the bonus if you didn't do something wrong. So you didn't actively you didn't actively do something positive to receive the bonus. You just had to avoid getting hurt, basically, to get your $100 a quarter is what it worked out to be. So they've kind of evolved that into our Celebrates program, so it's all sort of the same thing. So we have our focus on FSQA, we're a food manufacturer, and we have our focus on our safety. So like last year, our OSHA recordables was 0.9, which is huge. As you probably are all aware, in the manufacturing industry. This year's not going so great. We had January was a tough month with all the snow. We had a couple of slips and falls in the parking lot and stuff, and people just not paying attention, unfortunately. But last year it was really something to recognize and stuff. So we really try to make an effort to recognize when people are doing something safe, something outside of their normal behavior that goes above and beyond. And it's really been a successful program so far. I mean, we're only, 6 months in at this point, but I see people wearing the sweatshirts because we have step-up hoodies that you only get if you had received a recognition from the program. So, and kind of elevates it a little bit too, because not everybody has one. We are famous for giving out apparel to our associates. So we just had an event last week that we had a food truck come in, and then we teamed up with FSQA. So we gave them all a shirt, and we had a 99 on our SQF score this year, which is also fantastic. So we're really recognizing that and stuff too. So, but when we have this zip-up hoodie, because we don't always do the zip-up hoodies, unfortunately, The people wearing this particular marine.
They cost more to make.
They cost
They-
more.
Yeah.
So this maroon zip-up hoodie, like, shows that, hey, I did something, I went a little bit above and beyond, so people are still recognizing, positive behaviors and stuff, so.
If you wanna do blankets, let me know.
We've done blankets.
We've done blankets.
We've done anything and everything. I've done it for 12 years, and we used to get 2 gifts a year, now and shirts, and now,
Yeah.
company's generous in that aspect, I must say.
We do.
People like
We-
swag.
They do
love
like
swag.
swag.
We do birthday celebrations every month. I mean, again, we're, 1,150 employees, so it's like, we got a lot of employees, and we recognize, we bring in cakes, we do games, and we have pizza, we have everything for them, and we do it every month. It's birthday celebrations. Yeah, it's really,
Yeah.
it's a great day for everyone, and again, some people, they've never had this before. One of the things we did this year, which was new, was Multicultural Day. Again, as I said, 38 countries represented. I'm embarrassed to say I did peanut butter and fluff. I mean, that's what we did but it was amazing how many people had never had.
You don't get more American than peanut
No,
butter and fluff.
it's
I gotta
and it was
say.
Wonder Bread. I mean, what's better than that? I mean,
Wonder Bread and fluff.
And I'm a Jiffy girl, so I was using Jif. However, I mean, it was amazing, like other cultures, like, what is this fluff? Had no clue what it was. I was like, I
Are they
want
converts
that.
now?
I was
Yeah.
going to the other cultures and having what they were offering, but yeah, huge success. I mean, so it's like, oh my God, we're gonna have to do something bigger and better next year, because it was those little celebrations that just make a huge difference. Cost you nothing, it was all volunteer. People just wanted to bring in their own cultural food and celebrate in that and share it with other employees. And again, multi-languages, so sometimes they
We've done
can't
that.
even communicate, but again, you can communicate. Food is amazing. It just opens up, and music. Music was the other part of that as well too.
We
so.
do that at company cookouts.
It's great.
And everybody is always encouraged, bring something that has significance to you, right? A favorite family recipe or something that ties to your culture, etc. And now that it's May, it's like, when's the first one? I'm sorry, it's actually
It's June, I know, but I want to forget May. It was so rainy. Yeah.
Any other comments?
I have a question, to the panel. Have you noticed with the different generations in your work in Massachusetts, the increase in the PFML applications and the difficulty staffing for the people that are out? We've seen this grow tremendously, and we're starting to see, the males, that would take, a week, maybe 2, when the child was born, that are taking those full 12 weeks.
Yeah.
And, and we're a manufacturing company, 208 years old, thank you.
Geez, I'm in like kindergarten.
With that, where we're located in Southbridge, I mean, we're a community, employer, so there's people that walk to work.
Yeah.
It's a multi-generation in the factory.
In your factory.
So when there's when there's a birthday, their chances are their partner also works for the company, and grandma works for the company, and so we see a tremendous amount, and it really is a drain on our staffing. I just wondered if you could speak to that, what your experience is.
Yeah, it's huge, and unfortunately, it's not getting any better. I am typically processing 10 to 12 requests on a weekly basis, and I am finding that when you looked at the demographics, I have more males actually taking it versus female for the bonding purposes. And it is it's a struggle to try and keep that. So we closed last year, I had 180 claims go through PFML, which is huge. When you try and backfill those positions, anywhere from 12 to 20 weeks, depending upon why they were out. And it is a financial burden on the company. We were privately insured for the PFML. I switched over to the state this year because, we were about $850,000 a year to just have that premium. So we went, all right, we're going to the state. And the state, I will say, from that perspective, does a great job in managing it and getting the information to us a lot quicker than a private plan. But yeah, it's growing. I think they're, a week pregnant and they're coming in already telling us, I'm gonna have a baby. It's like, okay, so they know it's out there, it's readily available, and they're taking their full 12 weeks. And it's easier on the company to do it lump sum versus the intermittent leave, not that you can direct it, but from a company's perspective, I find that it's a little bit easier to manage if they take it as a whole versus in separate increments, but, you know, again.
I was actually gonna ask you that.
Yeah.
We're, I mean, fortunate or unfortunate, most of our team is beyond the childbearing years. We do have, you know, some younger folks, and there's one I know will probably end up doing that, but we have not had to, you know, for us, for PF, the family leave, it's more older folks who are trying to still work, not really ready to retire, but still, you know, so they're taking advantage of that. And we've managed it because we have a good team of people who can have that skill set and fill in, and luckily for us, this individual still comes in part-time. So you take advantage of when they're there. It's not a full-time leave. So yeah, fortunate to not have to deal much with that at this particular stage, but I'll be looking for advice when we have to.
The younger generation,
Yeah, it is.
for the childbirth and the bonding, but we have our Gen X now that you figure is over that hump, that now are taking care of their elderly.
Their
parents,
Need the
correct.
same,
It's a combo.
You know, they need the same intermittent or continuous leave, so it has been a big struggle for us.
They do only pay 60% of your pay,
Yes.
so I mean, I would
It's
think that would be a
based on-
deterrent
it's
for
based on
many
the
people,
average
because,
wage.
Yeah.
It's based on the state average wage, and then off of that, what you
What
make
they've earned.
in comparison, so there is a difference. You know, and also they can claim PFML when they're on workers' comp to bring them up to what the state
Oh, they
average
can?
is. Yes, they can supplement the plan. So there's a lot that's
We
happening.
don't advertise that.
seems like the double dipping shouldn't be permitted.
Yes.
You know,
I mean, you
hire
want people to
someone-
come back to work, so you try not to make it super easy on them to stay out of work, so.
Or nowadays you're hiring someone and, you know, a month or two in, they let you know that they're pregnant, you know, they're 4 months pregnant, they didn't want to tell you right off the bat. So you just hired them, you started training them, and now you have
You're gonna leave.
to have the contingency of who are we gonna backfill them with, so, you know, it's really a struggle, and I'm sure a lot of manufacturers
Yeah.
are feeling that.
It was
I'm
funny.
feeling pretty happy on, we
You're
only have
happy.
28 people right now.
Well, I was gonna say, the smaller
To
companies
that,
must have a
we
harder
just had
time.
We had an employee coming in for a customer service rep, and she disclosed she was pregnant, and it was funny, well, you know, the first thing the hiring, oh, I can't hire, it's like, well, first of all, yes, you can, and I said, do you ask men when they come in?
Right.
Oh, are you having a baby? I said, it should have no bearing, if you would hire this person not knowing that you hired this person, based on this.
It's illegal
Yeah.
discrimination.
Well, no, it is, that's what you're saying, but they're thinking, oh, no, they can't because they're pregnant, they can't work, it's like, no, they can work, and they will work, and they're fine, but they're entitled to this just like any other benefit that the company
I
offers,
have
so.
a bigger issue with the men taking
Well,
all to 24 weeks.
It's a struggle.
I think I got 3 days from it.
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say, it wasn't a thing.
It wasn't a thing.
Before.
My husband was Massachusetts, so we had it for like 5 years. It's been-
Yeah.
But the family dynamic has shifted.
I know it has, I know it has.
It has, like, women are going back, like, very soon. And
Asian
then
millennial.
They tandem it because we don't have the.
It's the ones who
Oh,
know
and daycare is so expensive.
Yeah, it's.
I didn't wanna be a stay-at-home mom, it was never on
No.
my plan.
I would have been if I wasn't the breadwinner.
My husband would have, but at the
Yeah.
time, he was the breadwinner. I make more than him now.
Those options were not available.
But my
Now,
husband got
point
2
is
weeks
changed.
off because he
Dynamics of
took
family
2
is
weeks off.
different. Yeah.
And
Unpaid.
it's a generational thing too, where baby boomers like, oh my god, I took 2 days off and I went back to work.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying too.
Yeah.
I think it's different too in a shift that they're like, yeah, I'll take it. I'll
I'll
stay
take
home
it.
with the baby.
Right.
Like we're back then, they would have been like, all right,
I
you
go
know,
back to
baby,
work.
I'm good to go. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, the time my husband took off too, he didn't get paid for any of it, you
Yeah.
know, so anytime he took off, there was less income.
Yeah.
And at the time, PMFL was not a thing,
Not
and the
even
jobs
option.
I happened to work, I did not get
Sure.
paid
Yeah.
for my maternity leave, and
Right.
I had twins my second time around.
Oh, boy.
So I took 4 months off then, but that was without income for 4 months, and, yeah, so it's,
Well, it's pretty clear that work has to become more accommodating to families, right?
Yep.
Because the demographic curve with less kids being born. You know, I've always worked for European companies, and there, if a woman.
very different mindset.
Very different.
Yeah.
woman
Very,
has
very different.
maybe, I think she gets 2 years
Yeah.
where it's not being paid
Right.
by the company, but the position is secure.
But the job will still be
You can
there.
get
Job is there.
A job of a similar
Correct.
statute
Yeah.
would be there. And they've been doing that for 30 years.
Yeah, very different.
And when you work with the international companies, because I worked at J&J, and I definitely had like the Swiss branch being like, hey Michelle, you wanna come over for a bit? We won't really have to train you, and then you can go back in 2 years.
I kinda like that option.
I know.
It's a nice one.
I know we're getting close to time without having to be warned. Because I heard dots were gonna be thrown, but anyway.
No.
Uh,
Yeah, till 2:30. Okay.
Wanted to throw one more question to the panel, which may throw up some more conversation. And then we're gonna end with just a quick overview of a handout that we have. But in your experiences, what has been the most successful thing for your agencies or you, right, to help pull that tribal knowledge that's existed, right? 'Cause we know the great tsunami's happening, right? So the tribal knowledge, we gotta get it out and get it to these younger people. What were the first steps or the best practices that you have now implemented to help extract that? Because I know that's a lot of the conversations I've had over the last few months with any workforce development team is that's what it's all about. Is how are we going to extract this and bring it to the new generation that's coming into the workforce, especially in manufacturing, get that to here, so then you can bridge that gap.
One of the
What's been
things-
some of the best practices?
One of the things we started to do is document all processes. So, I mean, that tribal knowledge was, nothing was documented, nothing was on paper. If they left, oops, they went with them, you know, and you had to figure it out and make the best of it. So we've really tried to have the management team particularly drive their force to document all of their processes, create SOPs and things that we didn't have any documentation for before, which is helping capture some of that knowledge that otherwise would vacate with, you know, the associates when it's their time to leave. So I think from our standpoint, that's been really helpful. Knowing that information is there, it makes people feel a little bit more secure also. And it's helping people to not just go to one person every time that can answer your questions. You know, like now we're creating resources that they can find the answers on their own without having to inundate a particular person. For a while, I've moved around a lot in the company, so I have a lot of different pools of knowledge, I guess. So I, for a while, was a go-to person, and it can be frustrating, and it can be like, I've already answered your question before, you know, so I don't want to have to keep answering the same question over and over again, you know, so creating these resources is allowing people to find their own and be a little bit more self-sufficient and less reliant upon other associates that maybe have the tenure or the base of knowledge and stuff, so.
So I think we did something very similar. We actually had a short-term employee who was hired for a 6-month period specifically to do that project. So she went around and interviewed each of the employees in the area. In a specific area, she took pictures, she wrote up the processes, and then she went back to them to say, have I captured this correctly? So that if there was anything that was off in what she documented, because she doesn't do that process daily, they were able to give her feedback on that. And it's a living, breathing document, right? The things need to be tweaked as it goes. So if something comes up, they're encouraged to share that information. I think the best thing that has worked for us is that repetitive statement of, we are not actively trying to replace you, right? You know, we did a survey last year and in attempt to plan for who may be retiring first, and we were amazed at the number of people who said, well, I can't tell you when I'm going to retire because it really just depends on how long I'm healthy enough to stay. Like, I have no intention of going anywhere, but I'm 68 years old, and at some point in time I may be forced to leave. And the more they've seen the newer people come in and the folks that they've worked with for 15, 20, 30 years stay, the more that level of trust has been built that we're not bringing in new people to replace you. We are really bringing them in to train them, and then we've reinforced that with not having them come and ask a supervisor necessarily when there's a question they need to ask, but go to the employee that's done it for that long a period of time and ask them for the help, as opposed to, like, don't come ask me, I don't know any of that. Like, I'm just gonna tell you, well, have you asked so-and-so so that they can do it? But it took a while to build that level of trust. But once they had that, they were more willing to be forthcoming with all of the information instead of just enough.
I worked with a chef one time. I'm a trained pastry chef too. I kind of fell into manufacturing, so. But I worked with a chef one time who held one ingredient out of one dish that he made that everybody loved. And he was nearing retirement age, and we're all like bribing him to find out, what is this ingredient in your butter cake? He left and never told us. We attempted so many different things to try and mimic his butter cake, and we just never ever could get it the same. And then customers would, like, I worked at a hotel out in Phoenix at the time, but they'd come in and be like, how come there's no butter cake on the buffet anymore? And I was like, Adolf retired. You know? They're like, well, didn't he leave his recipe? I go, most of it. That's the problem. He left most of it. So, you know, getting him to be forthcoming with all of the information. And I don't know whether he just looked at it. He was a very old school baker. Like, that was, women didn't belong in the bakeries at that time. You know, he always wore the full whites and everything, and he was awesome. He was amazing. He was fantastic at what he did. But just trying to get that little bit, that one ingredient that we never figured out what it was that he added. And
should have put it on his tombstone.
I know. That's funny. Again, I really think, you know, what we found is that strong mentorship and that peer support, that's really been it. It talks to trust, respect, making sure that we are, you know, ingraining that in our employees. You're not going anywhere. We just need for you to be able to transfer that and know you're going to have something here if you want that. If that's what you want. If you really want to transition into retirement, then you need to do us this and share with your individuals what you do. I mean, again, to your point, maybe that one thing, it's not written down. We too, we don't, you know, SOPs aren't always written down, or you're missing some of the steps within the SOP because someone just didn't think about that. So again, just, you know, making sure our employees truly understand that trust and respect is there. We need you as much as you need us, and you're not going anywhere, but we need for you to help us train. So pairing them up, keeping that gap, you know, minimizing that gap, and making sure that that transfer of knowledge is happening on an ongoing basis. Again, that's really, don't intentionally separate those generations, bring them together. And there's many ways that you can do that within your own culture. We did just implement Shingo training. So 100% of our manufacturing operations sales are completing Shingo training. We're at about 80% now, so we're expecting by the end of this year, we're gonna have 100% of our employees who will have gone through Shingo training, which is huge. It's, again, it's our culture, it's trust, it's respect, it's all of those things. We live, breathe Kaizans, and so this is very, very important that we're able to do this, and everybody's involved. And, you know, some people are, why am I going through this training? It's like, well, you need to do it, because we have to lead by example. So you may do it, but you've never been officially certified on it. People are now being certified on it. And it's also our attempts that we do too. It's not just reserved for AIS employees. So our attempts, as they come in, they go through the same training that our AIS employees go through. Because again, it's important that we're all headed in the right direction. We all need to be in that same direction.
Anybody have any last minute questions for the panelists? I won't ask them.
All right. So before we end, we provided an action plan, an action step for you all to bring back and really just think about what's the next steps for you, or how could this work for